All right, now to a major update in our Tainted Water series, looking at groundwater contamination in Morrow and Umatilla counties in eastern Oregon. For the first time in more than a decade, the State Department of Environmental Quality released a report analyzing the contamination. And if you've followed our series for the last 2 years, you will not be surprised to learn that the nitrate contamination in the area has gotten worse. Now, if you're just hearing about this, here's a quick refresher to get you up to speed. More than 30 years ago, the state of Oregon discovered a massive aquifer covering 562 square miles near the town of Boardman is contaminated with nitrates. The chemical you cannot see, taste, or smell is harmful for people above limits set by the EPA, especially infants and pregnant women. Many wells in the area have nitrate levels above those limits, mostly belonging to people with low income. In the affected area called the Lower Umatilla Basin Groundwater Management Area, or LUBGWAMA, as many as 4,500 wells have drilled down through the earth to get water from the contaminated aquifer for cooking and bathing and drinking and more. But over the decades, nitrates from farm fertilizer, commercial food production, and large animal operations have seeped down into the water, making the contamination worse. And this new report shows that it's still getting worse. We're going to highlight some of the findings in this near 200-page document, and then we'll hear from advocates with differing thoughts on what should happen next. First, a summary from the report that lays it out pretty clearly. Nitrate leaching through the soil is likely still occurring. Annual median, annual average, and annual maximum nitrate concentrations increased over the 32-year period. The data in the report comes from samples taken back in November of 2023 from 30 domestic wells across the region that you can see right here on this map. For those familiar with the area, the Umatilla Ordnance Depot is in the middle, and the Boardman bombing range is in the bottom left. And here's what the results show. Those different colored dots there represent different levels of contamination. The EPA says 10 milligrams per liter of nitrates or above is not safe for drinking or bathing. Those would be the orange, pink, red, and purple dots. These latest tests show that 18 of the wells are below that threshold, but 12 of them are above it, with one of them, the purple dot right in the middle there, testing at nearly 68 milligrams per liter. Now, if that map doesn't make you think twice about the contamination in the region, DEQ also made a visual showing their data and the Oregon Health Authority's well testing data, helping illustrate just how many people have tainted water. Every orange and red circle here represents a well where the water should not be used for drinking or cooking. And as you can see, there are a lot of them, from Boardman to Hermiston and beyond. And those are just the wells that have been tested thus far. Here's how the problem has gotten worse over the 30-plus years the state has known about it. There are lots of colors and dots and numbers on this one, but I want you to look at the lines through each data set, all of them going up, up, up. That means more contamination. Other interesting notes from the report show that even though the highest nitrate results are in the western half of the region, there's not any geographic pattern they can point to. In fact, results widely vary, even in wells close to each other. 6 wells near Oregon, all within a mile of each other, saw results ranging from less than 1 milligram per liter of nitrates all the way up to 32 milligrams per liter. The report also notes that half of the wells show nitrate seasonality, meaning nitrate levels were typically higher in the spring than the fall. And the depth of wells does not appear to have much impact on contamination. They say some wells show fewer nitrates the deeper they are, but not in a way that can point to a definite way. A weak correlation, the DEQ calls it. But perhaps most notably, the report says land use changes or changing surface activities has the potential to improve the groundwater, which seems obvious. Stop putting nitrate-laden water all over, and the groundwater below can slowly recover. But the report's recommendations don't go that far. Instead, they simply say we need to continue testing and expand the well testing network in the region. Mandating any meaningful changes do not appear to be on the horizon. For decades, the state has relied on voluntary actions to try and stop the contamination. We've seen how that has not worked. In September, the state released a plan to try and get a handle on the problem, but advocates say the plan falls far short.
Now, the state's plan, I mean, it's been out for months at this point. It's essentially a plan to make a plan. It is a reminting and repackaging of the same strategies that have failed to bring groundwater nitrate levels down since 1990.
And the new DEQ report comes on the heels of a controversial executive order from Governor Tina Kotek last month, allowing the Port of Moreau to violate its wastewater permit and pump contaminated water out onto the fields in an area because the port's storage lagoons were full. The port said if they couldn't pump that water out, there would be furloughs, layoffs, or potential business closures because companies need to pump their wastewater to the port in order to operate. Advocates like Oregon Rural Action say the timing of that executive order and this DEQ report showing the contamination getting worse is both shocking and confusing.
The interests in the basin are pretty clear. Sources of pollution want to be able to continue the status quo that has allowed them to grow and balloon and spread more of this contamination and profit as they do it. It is in their best interest to continue the status quo. And the status quo, now we have two analyses by DEQ over the course of 15 years that say the status quo is going to continue to make this worse. Why the people on the ground affected by this pollution need a public health emergency. We've been asking for that for years now. And we know that this has gotten worse since we've been asking for that. We need the priorities here to start to reflect the facts on the ground. And a public health emergency declaration would be a huge step in the right direction.
But there are those in the region who believe the state's plan is the right path forward. That includes the group Water for Eastern Oregon. It's made up of farmers and businesses who operate in and around the area. Justin Green is the executive director. He's the former DEQ statewide water quality administrator.
I've worked in government in 2 different states for over a decade, and I can say with absolute confidence that we are seeing unprecedented efforts being taken by the state, by local government under the leadership of the governor to address this issue. So I would have a strong issue with anyone saying that the actions being taken aren't anything new or unremarkable. These are unprecedented efforts that we are seeing being undertaken right now. Well, farmers and businesses in the basin remain committed to addressing groundwater quality in the lower Umatilla Basin. The increasing trends are concerning, but not surprising. It will take time for the work that is now underway to take effect and show results.
So in the meantime, the Oregon Health Authority has been offering free well testing for people in the area. They tell us they've tested nearly 2,000 households in the area, but around 500 have actually declined the offer of free testing. If those tests come back showing high levels of nitrates, some people are getting free filter systems, while others are getting clean water delivered to their front door. All right, now it's your turn to weigh in. Should the state be doing more to curb this contamination? Why or why not? Anything surprise you in the DEQ's new report? Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090.